All right, today we're going to do a variation on a tried and true pattern, the pheasant tail nymph. To start off with, I've got a size 16 nymph hook in the vise with a 2.4 millimeter copper bead. And we're just going to kind of mix it up a little bit. We're going to add a little bit of flash to the wing case and to the legs. So we're going to start off with our thread. I've got Danville 70 denier in black. And I'm just going to start wrapping behind the bead, get a few locking wraps, and then go ahead and snip out our tag in, and then take a couple more wraps back towards the bend of the hook. Of course, we're going to be using some pheasant tail, so I've got 6 pheasant tail fibers here. I'm just going to go ahead and strip those off of the stem, and our length of our tail is going to be about the length of the shank. So we just kind of measure that against the shank of the hook and then transfer that measurement back towards the bend of the hook, and then we'll take our thread and wrap those on towards the bend of the hook. When I get to where I want those feathers to come off the hook, I like to take just a wrap underneath, and it helps just prop those fibers up and spread them out a little bit. Makes it look just a little bit better. Then we're going to go ahead and grab our ribbing material, and we're just going to get some copper wire here, some small UTC copper wire. We'll take off a few inches of copper wire, and then we're going to tie this in as our ribbing material, just there where we tied in our tail. Just take a couple of wraps and tie that in. We'll try that again. Tie that in there. And then we're going to take that tag end of those pheasant tail fibers, we're going to actually use them as our body. So we're going to bend those back and then wrap those back to where we tied in our tail. So they're all kind of in there together. And then we'll wrap our thread back towards the bead, securing our wire as we go. So then we'll take our pheasant tail fibers and we'll start wrapping those towards the bead, leaving a little bit of a gap back there behind the bead to tie in our thorax. And we'll take our thread, come over the top of that pheasant tail fiber, a few wraps to lock that in place. I like to do just some in back and then some in front. And then we'll take our scissors and we'll cut out the waist. Now we've got our copper wire here. We'll go ahead and wrap that in the opposite direction that we tied in our pheasant tail. Just kind of a open wrap back towards the bead to help strengthen that pheasant tail fiber, giving a little bit of a flash effect as well. Come in and lock that wire in with a few turns of our thread. And then once we have that locked in place, we'll just grab that and twist, kind of helicopter that wire off to get it to break off nice and clean. There's our body and our tail, looking good. So this is where we kind of mix it up a little bit from the traditional pheasant tail nymph. We're going to actually take 6 fibers of crystal flash and tie this end as our wing case and our legs. So I've trimmed off the end of them so they're nice and clean, so we can tie those in. We'll take a couple of wraps of thread on them and then pull them back so they don't extend over the bead. And then we'll go ahead and wrap those ends down so they're nice and tight. There we go. And then we're going to take our peacock curl. And I've got 3 strands of peacock curl here. And it's a good idea just to kind of trim off the tips of those. The tips are pretty brittle. They'll break on you sometimes, so kind of trim off the tips and take our thread, and we're going to go ahead and tie them in by the tips behind the bead, and then wrap those back to where we stopped with the crystal flash. And kind of a good tip is to leave your thread at the back instead of winding it towards the bead, because sometimes the pheasant tail or the peacock curl can separate as you wind up, and that thread kind of acts as an anchor and keeps those peacock curl fibers together as you wind forward. So we're gonna take a few wraps behind the bead. Once we get there, we can take our thread, wind over the top of our peacock curl, a couple of wraps, a couple of back, a couple in the front, lock those guys in, and then we can take our scissors and trim off the excess. All right, so now we've got our crystal flash that we've tied in. We're going to bring that over the top and kind of use your thumbnail as a way to kind of spread out those fibers evenly behind the bead to create our wing case. Then we'll take our thread, come over the top. You can kind of pull on those on that crystal flash to kind of get them even. Take a couple of wraps to lock that in, and then come in front of those behind the bead. And then what we're going to do is we're going to separate these 6 fibers, 3 on each side. So we're going to grab 3 fibers, pull them towards me, and then we're going to take 3 fibers and pull this way. So we have 3 on each side, like so. And then we'll take our scissors. I like to cut them, bring them back, and then cut them to where they're just to the back of where the wing case there. And then take our scissors and just snip them off on either side. And that creates just some little legs there in the front. And then we grab our whip finish tool and we go ahead and whip finish. And 3 or 4 turn whip finish is all you need. And there you go. We'll snip out our thread. Take a look. Kind of push those legs down on either side. Like that. You can fish it just like that. I have for many years, been very effective, but then you also take a little bit of your, if you have some UV resin, come back over the top of that wing case and grab your torch, hit that few seconds. That'll lock in the threads as well and kind of magnify that that crystal flash on the back a little bit. So there you go. That is the Phlashy pheasant. It's a great fly. I mean, it's a little bit of flash to it as an attractor. You know, put that on a dry dropper rig, and it does pretty well for me. All right, thanks for watching, and until next time.